This is Dr. Tom Elliott, Medical Director of BCDiabetes. I'm going to record some Nightscout for you. I'm going to talk about it, show you what it is, show you what sort of analytics that are possible, and then run through some scenarios. But first, let's give credit to where it's due. There's this big open source community, people who work for free, who have built these wonderful apps. And the app we're going to spend most of the time with now is called Nightscout. Nightscout is actually a URL, a web, a domain. It's personalized, it's anonymous, and it's the simplest way to share CGM data. And when you're looping, it also shares the insulin settings as well as ISF basal rates and carb ratios. So this is what our clinic relies on day to day, and it's what we recommend you get if you're thinking about going open source APS. At BCDiabetes, all of our clients get a Nightscout account at no charge. So to demonstrate Nightscout, I'm showing you on my screen the live feed of one of our clients. She has consented to it being on this video and kind of gets a kick out of it because she loves everything to do with Loop and its flavors. You can see that it's now 16:38. It's 20 to 5 on a Friday. It's time to go home and have a drink. You can see that her sugar is 10.2. And what else do we see? We see her sugars over the last 24 hours, because we've got the setting at 24. We could do 12, we could do 6, we could do 4, we could do 2, 3, or 2. Here's 2 hours. We're going to go back to 24 hours. We see at the bottom of the screen the previous 48 hours. Nightscout always shows us 48 hours of data, but the upper we can customize. Over on the right, we see the sugar, we see the arrow horizontal, so it's stable. It's actually 0.2 less than it was 2 minutes ago. We can see that there's 1.58 units of insulin on board. There are 5 grams of carbs on board. The cannula age, which in her case is the Omnipod, is 48 hours. The sensor age is not working, and she's got no basal insulin running right now. Over here, we can see that her cell phone battery's at 45%, the pump's at 48%, and she's running AAPS. AAPS is the brainchild of Dana Lewis and Ben West. Ben West, I should add, is the father, is the inventor of Nightscout, and in all its glory, Ben is the principal of T1 PAL in San Diego, and there's not a day goes by that I don't think gratefully towards Ben and all the work he's done. We've talked about all the settings and what we can see. Let's go to the blue tracing. The blue tracing is basal insulin. You can see a fine dotted line. This is the set point for the basal rate. If the blue rectangle goes above the set point, the system is giving additional basal insulin as a temp basal. If it goes below the dotted line, as it does here between, whatever it is, 7 o'clock and midnight, you can see that the basal insulin is shut off completely. And here it is through the rest of the day. Now, these apps also give microboluses of insulin. To see the microboluses, I'm going to change the timescale. But over here, where our client took her lunch today, you can see that there are many, many boluses. Let's go down to the last 4 hours. Actually, let's do 6. Each of these dots is 5 minutes apart, and you can see here that there's a microbolus being given every 5 minutes, 0.15, 0.2, 0.2. And we can see another really cool feature of these advanced algorithms is that it's listing 1 gram or 3 grams of carb as a feature of the fat protein calculation. So if you enter fats and proteins in your meal, it will distribute the carbs over the duration of carbs that you enter. So that's one of the rather beautiful additive things with the advanced algorithms. Let me see, anything else I want to show you? Not really. Let's go to reports. Reports are ultra powerful. In the top right screen, we've got the 3 coins. Click on report. And I'm going to show you 4 of the views. Our favorite is day to day. Got to click. I'm going to click, I want to show you insulin on board. So that's not, you've got to click that yourself. Go show. You can see we're defaulting to 7 days. Our target range is 3.9 to 10. And here we have her last week. What do we see? We see that she likes her carbs. Looking over here, it gives us a summary of what's happened through the day. So she's had 127 grams of carbs yesterday. That's a very healthy thing. She's not starving herself. She's not on a carnivore diet. She's really making the system work. In terms of her insulin distribution, she's getting 79% as bolus and 21% as basal, and this is the norm with the advanced algorithms. And even with Loop, you see a preponderance of rapid insulin for people who eat any decent amount of carbs. What else can I show you? Here we have the same patterns of the rectangles of basal insulin, and this blue here are the microboluses. So I think one thing you can see for sure is that this client practices intermittent fasting. So she really only eats, she only eats once a day sometimes. And here she's got an 18 or 19 hour fast between dinner at 5 and lunch today at midday. Insulin on board was, I checked, and you can see it's this fine line. And of course, she's got a lot of insulin on board when she has her carbs. That's all I wanted to show you of the day-to-day view. The distribution view is very familiar for people who look at Libre View and Clarity. She's 82% time in range, estimated A1C 6.6, standard deviation 2.3. Anything less than 2.8 is awesome. So she is awesome. Let's go to profiles. Profiles is very powerful because if you have the Nightscout of one of your clients, you don't need to ask them what their settings are at. The settings are here listed in profile. So she's got a duration of insulin action of 7 hours, which is long. She's quite insulin sensitive. Her carb ratio is 1 to 14.8. Her ISF is 1 to 3.9. She's got 3 identical basal rates of 0.3, and she's got a very aggressive target range. So the app is forever trying to correct her down to 4.3. But she's done well. She's never had a low in her life, as far as I know, severe low. So those are her settings. Now she's on an advanced algorithm which has dynamic ISF. So if the sugar's high, it makes the ISF more aggressive, and if it's low, it makes it less aggressive. So this gives extra power. What about Loopalizer? Loopalizer is something that the case manager, the diabetes technologists look at. I haven't said anything about diabetes technologists, but our clinic couldn't run without them. We have 4 endocrinologists. We all have a good knowledge of the apps and their settings, but it's impossible to know everything. So you need these diabetes technologists who are know everything about the hardware, the software, the settings, the advanced settings. They know how to troubleshoot. They can answer any question quickly, and what's more, they've got time. So they spend we have a half-hour appointment where they can help our clients. The endocrinologists ultimately make the treatment decisions, but we use their help. I know that our diabetes technologists like to look at insulin on board. If you're having lows and your IOB is negative, it typically means you need to lower your basal rate. That's one take home you might get from Loopalizer. Let's go now to some common patterns. So we've got two diabetes technologists at BCDiabetes. Praveen Samuel single-handedly installed, configured, and fine-tuned the first 248 of our loop starts. We're now at about 450. Nabil Khan joined us about 13 months ago. Nabil is prepared these screenshots from Nightscout for me to address some of the common patterns. But before we do that, I wanted, I'm a physician. We talk to the patient. How's the patient doing? Do they think they're doing well or not? If they think they're doing well, then probably nothing's really that broken. We may need to do some tweaks. If they're not happy, it's pretty likely we need to make some tweaks, even if they're relatively minor. Ultimately trusting the algorithm is a big deal. It goes without saying that our clients are pre-bolusing 10 to 15 minutes, that they're carb counting, and that they're being consistent. If we find a one-off abnormality, we are not going to make any changes. If they go for a Big Mac and fries and a Slurpee, there's no way they're going to give enough rapid insulin. So the treatment of that is don't do it, or at least don't do it very often. So we're really looking for consistent, consistent patterns that we don't like. Okay, let's do the first one. Nabil's labelled each one, but before I read the label to you, I want you to look at those 2 days. What do you see? I think you see high sugars after lunch, afternoon snack and dinner the first day, and then high sugars after dinner. So, what can we do? We can reduce the portions, the carbs, etc. We're talking about artificial pancreas here. The system's going to take care of the carbs as long as we do our carb counting decently. So really today we're going to talk about adjusting insulin. If your sugar's high, you need more insulin. And do you need more insulin? Basally, no, because overnight looks okay. You need more insulin with the meals. So we've got a choice of increasing, making the carb ratio more aggressive, giving more insulin up front, or making the ISF more aggressive so that the correction is going to be more aggressive. In general, if you see a broader slope, a broader sustained high like this, it's going to be the carb ratio that needs to be made more aggressive. If you see sharp spikes, you may need to pre-bolus. If you see a steep down slope, it's probably the ISF that needs addressing. Anyway, in this case, we're going to make the carb ratio more aggressive. If they're on 1 to 10, we might make them 1 to 9. Let's move on. What do we see here? If you stare at it, safety's number 1. We're seeing lows. We're seeing a low after breakfast 2 days in a row. So we need to give less insulin. Is the problem that we're giving too much insulin up front, or is it that we're giving, or is it the correction factor, the ISF, is too aggressive? Now, Nabil, who prepared these slides, said that the carb ratio is too aggressive. We gave too much insulin for that meal. When I showed the slides to Praveen, he said, "Oh no, I would have made the ISF less aggressive." So you can see the downslope's pretty steep here. It's not so steep here, but so the bottom line is, you need to do something. You need to give less insulin, whether it's in your carb ratio or whether it's in your your correction factor, you need to give less. When I look at Nabil's notes, he says lows after breakfast, no microboluses. So he's looking in here, he sees no microboluses either time. So that's why he thinks it's a problem with the carb ratio. So we're either going to make the carb ratio less aggressive. Instead of 1 to 10, we make it 1 to 11 or 1 to 12. Or we're going to make the ISF less aggressive. If it's 1 to 2, we're going to make it 1 to 2.5, something like that. Let's go to the next slide, which is, what do we see here? What's the big picture? The big picture here is that the sugars are running a bit high overnight. And if you look at the basal rate, you can see the basal rate's maxed out. There's lots of microboluses. It's pretty obvious that the problem here is that we need to give more basal insulin. So, you know, if this is the client who's on 0.3, let's push her up to 0.35 or something like that. Let's go to the next one. Okay, we've got some controversy here, but let's remember that we're diabetologists. We're not diabetes technologists. What's the big picture here? On the day before, this person had a high sugar after lunch and a slight high sugar after dinner. So, you know, you might want to make the carb ratio or the ISF more aggressive there. But the reason that Nabil, who's our ultra tech diabetes technologist, he's picked up on the fact that 2 nights in a row we've got negative insulin on board. We've got the basal rate being maxed and then turning off. So for an overall net negative insulin on board. So if you're an ultra tech, you're going to make the basal insulin less aggressive. And if most people, you're probably going to say this looks just fine. We're not going to change anything. The argument for making the basal less aggressive is if the closed loop were to go to open loop, your cell phone dies or your sensor dies, and the pump is running blind. So, you know, if you're giving too much basal insulin and you're running blind, that's like the bad old days where you have seizures at night. So that's why some of us would make the basal less aggressive. More controversy. The endocrinologist, the diabetologist looks at this screen, what do we see? We see 3 lows the day before, one of them in the wee hours. So we need to give less insulin. We're giving too much insulin. Does it look like a mealtime problem? No, because certainly not here. And here we see a roller coaster. Now, a roller coaster is a red flag. Whenever we see a roller coaster, we think that the ISF is too aggressive. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. But here the sugars are low overnight. Most of us would say, let's just lower the basal insulin. Let's give less basal insulin. The argument that carries the day in my mind is that we've got the unstable roller coaster pattern. We've got fairly steep correction angles here, and we've got blood sugar dropping with positive insulin on board. So really, we're going to make the ISF less aggressive. So if it's at 1 to 2, we're going to make it 1 to 2.5, or even 1 to 3. So that's what we need to do. And our final slide is also somewhat aggressive, somewhat ambiguous and contentious amongst the 2 diabetes technologists and our visiting senior fellow Kate Hawke from Australia. Let's start with the big picture. What do we see on the screen? We see a bit of a high after lunch 2 days in a row. Are we getting excited by that? maybe we might want to give a bit more insulin with the meal, either a more aggressive ISF or a more aggressive carb ratio. But this is a special situation. We have this patient's running one of the advanced algorithms. It's AndroidAPS, and you can see this day that there are a lot of microboluses going on. So lots of insulin being given, but the sugar's not coming down. It's being limited by the sensitivity. The ISF is too sensitive. The system thinks that just a little bit of insulin is going to crash the sugar out. Well, the system needs to be made, the ISF needs to be made more aggressive. So this is in fact the treatment of choice. So if the ISF is 1 to 3, we're going to drop it down to 1.2.5, 1 to 2.5 or something like that. So that's the end of my talk. It's very exciting for me. I've been a diabetologist 31 years. Everything seems to be just so amazing now. It's the diabetes revolution. I want to put 200,000 Canadians on APSs and 2/3 of type 1s worldwide. The barriers are funding, ignorance, and accessibility to really good apps. So thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful.